Hey there. Today I'm going to talk about how life story writing can help bridge the gap between baby boomers and millennials. Now, I have to warn you, in today's video, there is something that may trigger you. It certainly did trigger me. And I offer some suggestions, some recommendations, so that if you are triggered, then hopefully there'll be some solutions there for you. I'm Joanna Klein. I am the creator and facilitator of Journey to Legacy, an online life story writing course for people who want to write their life story for themselves and their loved ones. Journey to Legacy uses life story writing as a way to help you feel good about the life you've lived, the years ahead, and the legacy you have to leave behind. Now, I offer tips and exercises in my videos, so if you like what you see today, please subscribe to this channel and you'll be notified when new videos show up. And I offer free gifts, so make sure you stay through to the end. So put away your distractions, grab your pen and paper, and let's dive in. Today, I'm going to talk about how to fill the generation gap between baby boomers and millennials. Now, millennials were born between 1981 and 1996. Gen Xers were born between 1965 and 1980. And what I'm talking about today can somewhat apply to Gen Xers. Baby boomers were born between 1946 and 1964. So you know where you fall into that any of those demographics. Today I'm going to talk about what I believe some of the reasons are for the gap, the disconnect that currently exists, some new ways to view the relationship between baby boomers and millennials. I'm going to focus specifically on those two generations, and then some specific actions you can take if you are feeling that generational gap. So now for the trigger. And let me give you a little background. A millennial that I know told me about a post on Instagram, a video post that a young man in his 30s posted. And I'm going to show that to you now.
Say what you will about baby boomers, but they have an extremely high tolerance for misery. They almost seem to enjoy it. How many of your parents have just been rocking the craziest case of depression, anxiety, undiagnosed shit, and they're just fine with that? They're completely fine with that. Like, they're not like curious about how to make their life better or like how to change it. They're just like, this is it. Honestly, that's kind of cool.
So I don't know about you, but that really triggered me. I was offended. I'm someone who is very much into personal growth, personal development, and the people that I surround myself with are as well. So I don't really know people who are sitting around complaining and not doing anything about it. And so first, it just totally triggered me. And then I took a deeper look into the post and noticed that there were over 68,000 likes. So 68,000 people saw this video post and liked it. And then there were lots and lots of comments. So let me read you just some of the comments that were made by some of the followers of this young man. And they're talking about baby boomers. They are in denial that things could get better. They see getting help as weak. They're in massive amounts of denial. They were taught to have a stiff upper lip and shut up about their needs. How frustrating to go through life just thinking that's how you are and there isn't anything you can do about it. Now, another baby boomer I was talking to was saying that sometimes she'll be sharing a story about something that's going on with her or something difficult that she's experiencing. And her daughter will say to her, don't trauma dump on me. So the millennials, apparently, according to this one woman that I know, experience us as trauma dumping on them. So I wanted to dive in deeper to this. And I'm a social worker. I look at family systems, and I've come to learn that even though in relationships it takes two to tango, it takes two to make a relationship work, that also it's possible that when one person shifts in a family system, it can cause a shift in the entire dynamic. So I'm not here today to make excuses for the man who posted that Instagram post, make excuses for baby boomers. But since my subscriber list is primarily baby boomers, I'm here today to talk about what we as baby boomers may do to create a bit of a shift in this generational gap. And it may or may not be something that you are feeling the need for. You may have a fabulous relationship with your adult child who's a millennial or adult children, and you might be just watching out of curiosity, or maybe you do have some challenges. And so you're wanting to get a few ideas. So either way, let's explore why is there this disconnect? Now there's many reasons out there. So I've come up with three things that I think kind of fit in terms of what it is that I have to share today. So the first one is that millennials grew up with therapy, whereas baby boomers did not. Now I know that when I was going through a divorce, my daughter was 3, and I took her to see a counselor in order to help her with that transition. And then later on, when we were having some more challenges with when I got remarried and with the new family, I also took her to counseling again. And when I was growing up, I just didn't consider that an option. I remember writing to Ann Landers, their Dear Abby and Ann Landers, a lovelorn column. And I remember writing to Ann Landers about my relationship, my difficult relationship with my father. And she wrote back and said, I recommend that your family go for counseling. Well, I wasn't about to bring that up to my family. And in my mind, there would be no way that they would consider it. I don't know, who knows? Maybe they would have if I had told them that had was going on for me, but I wasn't willing to share that. So when I was a kid, it was unheard of. But my daughter grew up with it being the norm. And as it turns out, there was a study that was done that 45% of millennials are more than likely to go get help through therapy if they need it, whereas only 8% of baby boomers are willing to go for mental health assistance. I'm not sure how that fits for you, whether or not you're someone who has seen a therapist or whether you're resistant to that. But the statistics show that most baby boomers do not want to have anything to do with it. So perhaps there is that, part of the gap is this attitude towards getting help and getting therapy. You may have an attitude about your adult child's success in therapy. If they are in therapy, you may feel like it's not doing them any good. But the point here is that millennials see therapy as an action step, and that overall baby boomers do not. And so perhaps what this young man is saying in terms of baby boomers complaining and not doing anything about it really kind of ties in with this attitude towards therapy. So again, just presenting a picture in terms of trying to understand, build more compassion for this generation gap. So another thing that could be getting in the way in this relationship between millennials and baby boomers is the economy. Now, Gen X was the first generation to not see that they could do better than their parents. As baby boomers, we grew up with these possibilities ahead of us and seeing it as possible that we were going to do better than our parents. And many of us did, are better off financially, whereas Gen X and millennials don't see that. The cost of housing, the economy, the cost of gas has impacted them. It has them anxious, worried. It affects their self-esteem. It affects their hope for a better future. So just notice that that's going on. Perhaps your millennial adult child is doing extremely well, much better than you. So that's a possibility. This doesn't apply to everyone, but overall, millennials don't have it as well as their parents did and are really feeling the stress of the economy. So something to keep in mind just in terms of the relationship, not that you can do anything about it, but just being mindful. A third thing that can impact the gap is technology. And with millennials grew up with technology, they have things at their fingertips instantly. So they have less patience. And clearly, they have less patience with us around our attempts to get to know technology, to start to work with technology. And so their experience of things is instantaneous. They want it now. They're used to having it at their fingertips. And many are addicted to technology, addicted to their phones. I think we're all kind of getting to that place, unfortunately. But it creates a gap in terms of patience, in terms of recognizing things take time. And so there's a mindset of like getting things done and getting it done now. So if they're perceiving their parents as having challenges, or if they're experiencing parents as complaining and not doing anything about it, there an element of impatience may be having to do with how they view the world, their parents' world. And then the fourth thing in terms of what millennials are going through is that clearly the world is a very different place in terms of safety. I remember growing up with fallout shelters or going under my desk in preparation for if we were bombed by another country. But now in the United States, for those of us who are living in the United States, I mean, other places it's happening as well, but particularly in the United States, we've got shooters in the schools. The millennials are worried about their children's safety in schools, not as much about a foreign country coming to bomb us, but just within our own community. And so this sense of security and this sense of safety, this sense of disconnect within our world and our country really weighs on people and all of us for sure. But I think it builds resentment as far as not feeling seen, not feeling understood for their own emotions and what they're going through. Again, whether you agree with it or not, I think for the most part, what I'm hearing and talking to millennials is that they're not feeling as if there's room for them to be able to express this anxiety and lack of safety, and that they're not feeling understood because they see baby boomers as not having had to live through, grow up in that same kind of sense of anxiety and lack of security and lack of hope in terms of the future. So I'm just setting the stage here. You may or may not agree. I'd love to hear your comments about it, but those are some of the things that are my take. And there's plenty of stuff out there. There's an excellent video on YouTube by Simon Simek, I think is the name, about millennials in the workplace. So you might want to check that out just in terms of understanding some stuff with millennials as well. I thought that was really an interesting one. So what can we do about it? Well, first of all, I want to talk about how to view this whole the relationship, another way of looking at the relationship between millennials and baby boomers. And that's one action that can be done is by holding space for them. And when I talk about holding space, I mean allowing for feelings to get shared. So assuming there's anxiety or feelings of resentment or feeling of hopelessness, allow that to be shared without trying to fix it. And this is an important skill to learn. I think many millennials that I talk to say that their parents are always trying to tell them to do it this one way, and what they hear is that their parents are wanting them to do it the way that their parents did it. And that way doesn't work anymore. So recognizing the way we learned, the way we grew up, the way that we went about building careers and saving for houses and saving for retirement, it doesn't work for them. So let go of judgment and just allow them to share, and then invite them to share with you, what are you thinking about doing about that? What are your thoughts? Questions that will help them feel empowered and that you're interested in hearing what their plan is without you giving advice, without you giving judgment. So just holding space can create a more cooperative environment and close the gap between baby boomers and millennial. And then another thing to do is to notice how you are communicating with them. Are you, in fact, complaining? Are you judging? Are you you know, talking about, what's going on in your world without listening to them? Or are you not sharing anything at all about what's going on in your world? And in fact, just holding, listening to what it is that they have to say. So what does your communication look like? And if in fact there is some complaining going on, then I want to invite you to dive deeper into what you want from them. What often when we complain, it's not the issue. The issue isn't what we're complaining about. We're wanting something else. What are you wanting from your adult child? Are you wanting a deeper connection? Are you wanting more quality time? Are you wanting to be treated more respectfully? Are you wanting to feel appreciated? Are you wanting them to understand something about you? Are you feeling judged by them? So spend some time thinking whether or not you see yourself as complaining or not, but in your communication, are you clear about what it is that you're wanting in that relationship if you're feeling that that relationship isn't satisfying for you at this point? And then in figuring out what it is that you want, then ask yourself, have you asked for that? Do you feel safe to ask for that? Now, here's an important thing to remember when you ask for what you want. It's important to do it without an attachment of any result. It's important when you ask for what you want. So asking for what you want is a big thing to begin with. Sometimes we have a hard time asking for what we want, but ask for what we want without an attachment of being able to get that. That way, then they're free to say yes or no. You can always ask again. For example, you want more quality time with them. So, can we have a regular phone FaceTime conversation on Sundays at 5 p.m.? I would love to have more time with you. They could say, well, I'm too busy, or maybe, I don't know. Great. I'll follow up with you on that. And then ask again. All right, Sunday's coming up. Can we go ahead and schedule that? They say no, then allow it and then ask maybe another time, but allow for that flow and don't be afraid to ask for what you want. Now, another step might be that you need to set a loving boundary. So let's say, for example, one of my clients was saying that her millennial son was calling at late at night and she likes to go to bed earlier. But it's her son. She wants to pick up and talk to him. But what she needed to do and what she ended up practicing and doing was setting a boundary. Son, I go to bed earlier now. I please don't call me after 9 o'clock. I want to talk to you, but after 9 o'clock, I don't have the energy to talk. If he calls after 9, she doesn't pick up. So sometimes what we're needing is just to set boundaries, and that's role modeling. It's role modeling taking care of ourselves, which is not something that we grew up doing as millennials grew up doing. They definitely, it's, the whole idea of getting facials and massages and getting our nails done and all of that stuff. That wasn't something that we did when we were teenagers, at least. Not I didn't, for the most part. I didn't do that. So it's something that, we get to set boundaries and say, no, this is where I draw the line, and doing it lovingly. And that can be teaching role modeling. We're showing how we take care of ourselves by setting that boundary. Now, if you are wanting to be seen, to be heard, to be understood, to be appreciated, and then my recommendation to you is to explore life story writing. So, why life story writing? Because when you write your life story, when you sit down and write your life stories, and life story writing is not for people, it's not talking about like writing your life story so that you go get published and have to worry about it being all like written in this perfect way. I'm saying look at life story writing as a collection of stories, picking different incidents in your life that you want to write about, and write about them looking at what was significant about them. What did you learn about that? What can you appreciate yourself? We go through life and don't take the time to reflect on what it is that we've done. And so the reason I'm recommending life story writing, if you are wanting to feel appreciated, to be seen, to feel heard, to feel respected, is to do that so that you can feel that for yourself, so that you can have a greater appreciation for you and what you've lived through. And when you do that, that sets off a message to your children. I know when I started life story writing, my daughter said, "Something's different. You're different." And I did feel different. I wasn't looking to her in the same way. I was wanting to be seen. I was wanting to feel appreciated. But I started to appreciate myself and to appreciate what it is I've lived through. And I felt more centered and more grounded. And it shifted our relationship. So if that's what you're wanting, then I recommend try life story writing as a way to provide that for yourself. And in doing so, it may end up being something that you get from your adult child. They may see you differently. Can't promise it, but I know that you will see yourself differently. And that's so important. Now, the other thing about life story writing that can be helpful in bridging this gap is that when you write about your life from a perspective, when you're looking, okay, so I'm wanting you to look at what's good. And when you start looking at what's good in your life, or what was good, when we so often are, taught to be humble, so we don't want to brag, but wanting you to go back and look what you did right, then you start building that muscle about what it is that's right about your life in general. You start building more gratitude, and you can bring that into your life right now. And that may, in fact, show up in your relationship with your children. So that if you are doing some complaining or they've gotten used to you doing that, perhaps the process of looking back, feeling grateful, and then bringing a sense of gratitude into your life right now could shift what it is that you're communicating to your kids. Here's another piece of benefit of doing life story writing in relationship to bridging this gap. I recommend that you also are looking at some of the more difficult stories, some of the things that we don't often want to go back and look at, but now you're looking at it from this new perspective. You've got time, there's distance in it. And you're looking at it from the perspective of, yeah, that was hard, but I made it through. And writing that down from a place that's vulnerable and transparent. And why is vulnerability so important in writing this down and writing your stories down? Because you're not just looking at what happened, but you're looking at how it happened, why it happened, and how you felt about it. And that's vulnerable. You're looking at being transparent. And when you're that way, when you're able to write down honestly what was going on for you and move away from this sense that you have to show up looking perfectly all the time, or that you have to communicate with your children about having done things in just the right way. And we often do that and trying to like guide them or show them the right way. But in reality, we're all imperfect. We've all had things go wrong. So being willing to write about that builds trust. Vulnerability builds trust. If you're familiar with Brene Brown, she's a researcher, professor, written lots of books, done research on shame and vulnerability. And she says vulnerability builds connection and it builds trust. So when you're transparent, when you're real about what you went through and showing what you learned from it, then that can connect with your adult child. Now, it's very important not to be using this as a trauma dump exercise. I'm not inviting you to write down all these miserable things. I'm inviting you to write down what was difficult, what was hard, but also what you got from it. Because from every experience, no matter how hard it was, we've built some strengths, we've built there's some kind of takeaway, there's some lesson, there's some blessing. And if you're looking for that, you're able to have those moments for yourself and you feel good about yourself. And then perhaps you want to share that with your millennial adult child, and they get to see you in a new light and they begin to build more trust for you. And they see that, no, you're not just sitting around complaining, you're actually doing something. For example, one of my clients was writing about a time in her life when she wanted this promotion within her company. She was doing well, wanted this promotion, and she didn't get it. And it was devastating. She got depressed, very low self esteem, and ended up leaving the company. But that led her to start her own business, and she became very successful. So her daughter only knew her as this successful person. She had no idea about this other story. But when my client wrote the story, it came in handy because at some point her daughter actually went for a promotion, didn't get it, and was devastated. So my client shared the story and it built this beautiful connection around this incident. The daughter hadn't seen her mother that way. She'd seen her mother as a successful career woman. In fact, she was holding herself up in comparison to her mother. So the vulnerability really helped the daughter. It helped the mother have some compassion both for herself and be able to share an experience with her daughter without lecturing, without trying to fix it. It's just like, look, I've been through something similar to this. So if you are interested in exploring this whole area of life story writing, then I want to tell you about my free gift. I have a free guide to start your journey on life story writing, and it's available on my website, journeytolegacy.com. Also, there will be a link here in this description for this video. So I invite you to get started with that and see how it works for you. And who knows, maybe you'll want to go deeper with it, want to get some coaching, want to be in a group situation where you're able to share some stories and start feeling good about your life, particularly if you're one of those ones that maybe it's true. Maybe you do a little complaining. Maybe you haven't lately been taking action to make things better for yourself. You kind of been stuck in the things aren't so good. So here's an invitation to and move forward and know you've got plenty of years ahead of you. Might as well enjoy them and feel good about yourself. Thank you for joining me.